Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The lightning strike was not what woke me. It was the sensation of cold steel pressing against my carotid artery. A touch so familiar and lethal it felt like a lover's caress. I did not flinch. To flinch was to die. In the heavy silence of the master bedroom, a room that smelled of my husband's expensive cologne and my own lingering misery, I opened my eyes slowly. The room was shrouded in shadows, illuminated only by the strobe light flashes of the storm outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Standing over me was a silhouette carved from darkness, a figure draped in tactical black, his face obscured by a mask, save for eyes that glinted with the predatory focus of a hawk. He was good. He had bypassed the perimeter sensors, the guards, and the pressure plates in the hallway. He was the best my husband's money could buy. "Don't scream," the assassin whispered, his voice a gravelly rasp that vibrated against the blade at my throat. "Lord Cashin wants it to look like a robbery gone wrong. Thrashing makes it messy." I lay perfectly still against the silk pillows, my heart rate infuriatingly steady. "Cashin paid for the premium package, I assume?" I asked, my voice dry, devoid of the fear he expected. The assassin froze. The blade wavered, just a fraction of a millimeter. It wasn't the words that stopped him. It was the tone. It was the cadence of a man who had stared into the abyss enough times that the abyss had started blinking first. "Turn on the lamp," I commanded softly. I said don't. "Turn on the lamp, Kalen. Or do you intend to kill the man who taught you how to hold that knife?" The silence that followed was heavier than the thunder rolling over the estate. The assassin's breath hitched. Slowly, with a trembling hand that defied his profession, he reached out and clicked the bedside lamp. Warm, golden light flooded the space, banishing the shadows. I sat up, the silk sheet pooling at my waist, exposing the scar that ran across my collarbone. A souvenir from a siege in the east. I looked up at the man hired to end my life. He had pulled off his mask. His face, usually a mask of stoic indifference, was pale, his lips parted in disbelief. He was older than when I last saw him, broader in the shoulders, a jagged scar now running through his left eyebrow, but those eyes, wide and shaking, were the same. "Master?" he breathed, the knife clattering from his grip onto the hardwood floor. I offered him a thin, tired smile. "Hello, little wolf. It seems my husband has very expensive taste in disposal services. To understand the absurdity of this moment, you must understand the lie I had been living. For 3 years I was Julian Vane, the frail, somewhat disappointing trophy husband of Duke Cashin Vane. To the public, I was a decorative ornament, a political acquisition from a fallen minor house. I spent my days arranging flowers, attending charity galas, and enduring the pitying whispers of the high society wives who knew my husband's bed was rarely warm. To Cashin, I was a checked box. He needed a spouse to secure his inheritance, someone docile, someone weak. He wanted a sheep. He didn't know he had married the shepherd of wolves. Before the retirement that led to my masquerade, I was known only as the Wraith, the Grandmaster of the Obsidian Order, the very guild of assassins Cashin had just hired to kill me. I had left that life, craving peace, craving a normalcy I had never known. I thought I could bury the blood beneath manicures and tea parties. I thought I could learn to love a man who saw me as nothing more than an asset. I was wrong. Kalen dropped to his knees. This man, a weapon honed to perfection, a killer who commanded fear across 3 continents, bowed his head until his forehead touched the plush rug beside my bed. His shoulders shook. "I didn't know," he choked out. "The contract came through a proxy. Blind target. High priority. Master, if I had known." "Stand up, Kalen," I said, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. I felt a strange sense of calm washing over me, the kind of clarity that only comes when a bridge is finally burned. "If you stay on your knees, you can't help me pack." Kalen looked up, confusion warring with his devotion. "Pack? Master, I have to extract you. If the Duke finds out I failed, he'll send the second wave." Not from the order he'll hire mercenaries. Butchers. I stood up, walking to the full-length mirror. I looked at the reflection of Julian Vane. The soft cashmere pajamas, the neatly combed hair, the posture of a submissive spouse. It was a good disguise. I hated it. Cashin won't send anyone else, I said, my voice dropping an octave, losing the softness I had feigned for 3 years. Because Cashin is going to believe you succeeded. I turned to Kalen. Tell me exactly what his instructions were. Kalen stood, his demeanor shifting instantly. He was no longer the shocked disciple. He was the lieutenant reporting for duty. Target is to be eliminated tonight. Staged burglary. Take the jewelry, trash the room. 1 clean cut to the throat. Proof of death required. Your wedding ring. I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. Of course. He wants the ring back so he can give it to the Lady Alara next month. I heard the rumors, but I didn't think he was impatient enough to murder me for a vacancy. I looked down at the platinum band on my finger. Felt heavy like a shackle. I twisted it off, the metal cool against my skin, and tossed it to Kalen. He caught it with reflex speed. Take it, I ordered. Bring it to him. Tell him I begged. Tell him I cried. Give him the satisfaction. And you? Kalen asked, his eyes darkening. Where will you go? The order has been lost without you. The council is in shambles. We need our king. I walked over to the closet, pushing aside the rows of beige and pastel suits Cashin insisted I wear. At the very back, hidden behind a false panel I had installed the week I moved in, was a sleek, black case. I dragged it out. I'm not going into hiding, Kalen, I said, popping the latches. Inside lay my old gear, the carbon fiber weave bodysuit, the twin daggers, the vials of toxins. I tried peace. I tried to be the good husband. I tried to be human. I began to unbutton my pajama top. Kalen watched, his gaze averting respectfully, but I saw the flush on his neck. We had a history, he and I, a complicated dance of mentorship and something darker, something unspoken that we had buried under duty. Cashin Vane wants a widower's life? I continued, stepping into the black tactical pants. The fabric felt like a second skin, far more comfortable than silk. I'll give him a funeral. But he made a mistake. He tried to kill a ghost. I fastened the harness across my chest. Tonight, Julian Vane dies, and the Wraith returns. The staging was a masterpiece of macabre theater. We overturned the armoire, shattered the vanity mirror, and scattered jewels across the floor. Kalen, with a hesitation that broke my heart, provided the blood, a synthetic compound the order used for faking deaths, mixed with a little of his own from a shallow cut on his arm to get the scent right for the dogs. We painted the sheets. It looked horrific. It looked perfect. Go, I told him, standing in the shadows of the balcony, the rain lashing against my face. Deliver the ring, collect the payment, and tell the council to prepare. Prepare for what? Kalen asked, lingering at the window. For a hostile takeover. I smiled, the expression sharp and dangerous. I'm taking my city back, starting with my husband. The next 2 weeks were a study in hypocrisy. From the shadows, I watched Cashin play the grieving widower. He wore black. He looked somber at the press conferences, and he spoke of the tragic home invasion that took his beloved Julian. The police, paid off and lazy, ruled it a robbery gone wrong. Case closed. But behind closed doors, Cashin was celebrating. I shadowed him. I lived in the ventilation shafts of his corporate tower, in the blind spots of his estate's security cameras. I watched him drink aged scotch with his business partners, laughing about how clean the transition was. I watched him meet with Lady Alara, discussing the merger of their families, their wedding date set for a month after my funeral. It was fascinating to watch a man unmask himself when he thought no one was watching. Cashin was arrogant, cruel, and profoundly stupid. He thought power was something you bought. He didn't understand that true power is something you take. And Kalen? Kalen was perfect. He remained in Cashin's periphery, acting as the liaison for the security firm Cashin had hired to beef up protection after the tragedy. It was a brilliant move. My husband had invited the wolf into the fold to guard the hen house. Every night, Kalen met me in the safe house, a derelict loft in the industrial district. He's moving the assets to offshore accounts, Kalen reported one evening, sliding a tablet across the metal table. He's liquidating your trust fund, Master. The one your grandmother left you. I glanced at the numbers. Let him. It makes the trail easier to follow. Kalen hesitated. He was standing close, too close. The air between us was charged with the electricity that had been building since that night in the bedroom. Master, the council knows you're alive. They are waiting for your command. But they question why we wait. We could kill him tonight. A sniper, a poison, a car accident. Why let him live? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. Death is too easy, Kalen. Cashin tried to erase me. He treated me like an object to be discarded. If I just kill him, he dies thinking he was a player in the game. I want him to know he was just a pawn. I turned back to Kalen. I want to destroy him. I want to take his reputation, his money, his pride, and his future. And then, when he has nothing left but the clothes on his back, I will let him see my face. Kalen's eyes darkened. He stepped forward, his hand reaching out to brush a stray lock of hair from my forehead. It was a bold move, one he never would have made as a trainee. But we weren't teacher and student anymore. We were conspirators. You're terrifying when you're angry, he murmured. Does it scare you? No, he whispered, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. It excites me. I grabbed his wrist, holding it there. Good, because tomorrow night is the gala. And we have a party to crash. The Vane Estate annual gala was the social event of the season. Ostensibly, this year it was a memorial for me. In reality, it was Cashin's coming out party as the most eligible bachelor in the city. The ballroom was draped in black and silver. The elite of the city were there, sipping champagne and offering hollow condolences while eyeing the buffet. Cashin stood at the head of the room, looking dashing in a velvet tuxedo, Lady Alara on his arm. She was wearing diamonds that I recognized, my mother's diamonds. I stood on the catwalk high above the stage, concealed in the lighting rig. Below me, Kalen was positioned near the sound booth. Ready, I spoke into the comms. Ready, Master. Kalen's voice crackled in my ear. Security is compromised. The exits are sealed. The broadcast is live. Showtime. The lights in the ballroom suddenly cut out. The music died. A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd. Then, the massive screen behind the stage flickered to life. It wasn't a memorial video. It was a recording. Asterisk grainy footage appeared. It was Cashin's office. The timestamp was 3 weeks ago. Asterisk, I want it done tonight. Cashin's voice boomed through the speakers, crystal clear. Asterisk, no mistakes. Make it look like a robbery. If Julian suffers, I don't care. Just bring me the ring. Asterisk, the crowd gasped. A collective intake of breath sucked the air out of the room. On stage, spotlighted by a single emergency beam, Cashin froze. Lady Alara snatched her hand away from his arm as if he were burning. Turn it off. Cashin screamed, his voice cracking. Someone cut the feed. But the video continued. It showed the transaction. The transfer of funds to a dummy account. The undeniable proof of a contract killing. This is a fake, Cashin yelled, panic rising in his chest. Deep fake. AI. It's a sabotage. Is it? My voice, amplified by the sound system, echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Cashin spun around, his eyes wild. Who said that? Show yourself. A spotlight snapped on, hitting the top of the grand staircase. I stood there. I wasn't wearing the beige suits of Julian Vane. I was dressed in the ceremonial armor of the Obsidian Order. Black leather, silver plating, a high-collared coat that billowed around me. My hair was slicked back, revealing the sharp angles of my face. I didn't look frail. I looked like a deity of vengeance. Hello, darling, I purred. Cashin stumbled back, knocking over a waiter's tray of champagne glasses. No. No. You're dead. I saw the ring. I saw the blood. I began to descend the stairs, slow, rhythmic steps. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, terror and awe on their faces. Kalen materialized from the shadows at the bottom of the stairs, flanked by 4 other operatives of the order, all masked, all armed. They fell into formation behind me. You saw what you wanted to see, Cashin, I said, reaching the ballroom floor. You thought you bought a knife to cut a sheep's throat. You didn't check who was holding the handle. Cashin was hyperventilating now. Security. Arrest him. He's an imposter. The head of his security team stepped forward. A burly man named Graves. He looked at me, then looked at the emblem on my chest, the silver nightshade. Graves went pale. He holstered his weapon and bowed. We do not engage the Grandmaster, Graves said, his voice trembling. Grandmaster, Cashin squeaked. He's a nobody. He's a charity case from the countryside. I stopped 3 feet from my husband. I could smell the fear on him. It was sour, pungent. I am the Wraith, I said, my voice low enough that only the front row could hear, but projected with enough intensity to freeze the room. I am the hand that moves in the dark. And you, Cashin, you hired my own subordinates to kill me. I gestured to Kalen. Kalen stepped forward, removing a tablet from his coat. He tapped the screen. The police are outside, Kalen announced calmly. The evidence of the murder conspiracy, the embezzlement of the Vane family trust, and the illegal arms dealing we found on your private server have all been sent to the authorities. And the press. Cashin fell to his knees. It wasn't a choice. His legs simply gave out. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. Julian, please, I can explain. It was pressure. The board. I leaned down, tilting his chin up with one gloved finger. You wanted a divorce, Cashin. You could have just asked. I straightened up, turning my back on him. Take him away. As the sirens wailed in the distance and the police burst through the doors, I didn't look back. I felt a hand on the small of my back. Kalen. We walked through the chaos, an island of calm in the storm. We walked past the shocked socialites, past the screaming Lady Alara, past the ruin of my former life. We exited the ballroom onto the terrace. The rain had stopped. The city lights glittered below us. It's done, Kalen said softly. The easy part is done, I corrected, leaning against the stone balustrade. I looked at him. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a hum of exhaustion and something else. What now, Master? Kalen asked. He looked at me with that same intensity he had in the bedroom, but now there was no knife between us. Now, I reached out, my fingers tracing the scar on his eyebrow. Now, I believe I am technically a single man. Kalen's breath hitched. He caught my hand, pressing his lips to my palm. It was a gesture of fealty, yes, but it was also a promise. The order needs a leader, he murmured against my skin. The order has a leader, I whispered, stepping closer until our bodies were touching. What the order needs is a consort. Kalen's eyes widened, then darkened with a hunger that had been starved for years. He wrapped an arm around my waist, pulling me flush against him. The power dynamic shifted, swirled, and settled into a perfect equilibrium. I might require an interview for the position, he growled. I smirked, pulling him down for a kiss that tasted of rain and victory. I think you've already passed the practical exam, little wolf. And that is how the Wraith reclaimed his throne, and how the Hitman stole the king. If you enjoyed seeing the hunter become the hunted, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments. If you found out your partner hired a hitman to kill you, would you hand them over to the police, or would you handle it yourself? Like Julian did? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then.